today's presentation, we'll present it as 10 topics. We'll follow the program. We conducted the left-hand version of this webinar 2 days ago. It really went well in terms of timing and so on. So we'll follow the same with a break in the middle and Q&A session at the end. So with that said, I will hand it to my colleague Mark, who will start presenting with the topic 1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rahmi, for that introduction. Rahmi will be back with us later on. I'd like to just introduce myself. I'm Mark Besley, and welcome to people in the United States and elsewhere around the world. I'll start off with the topic about the versionless project file. And this is something we've put a lot of effort into for SIDRA Intersection. In the past, we've had project files specific to the software version. So for example, version 9.1 used a SIP9 file. We've now moved to this sipx extension, and our intention is that this won't change across software versions. So in the past, there's always been the issue when we went, say, from version 8 to version 9, you could import the version 8 file into version 9, convert it to that version 9 format. You couldn't go back. And this always created a few issues around the time of changing the software version. So our new project file is based on a completely new database structure based on JSON, and the idea is we want to have a versionless file to ensure compatibility across future software versions. So version 10 has been released now, but the version 11 will come out, Rahmi mentioned, and when that comes out, the intention is you will be able to open the files created in version 11 if you're still using version 10. We realise it takes a while for new versions to get installed and set up for some people. And similarly, when we go to version 12, versions 10 and 11 should still be able to open the version 12 files. Of course, new features in, say, version 12 won't become available in version 10 or 11, but the files will be compatible. So it should be much easier to pass around your project files for review, for people you're doing consulting for, and so on. For the existing SIP9 project files, you'll need to open them in the version 10, either use file open and just open a specific one, it will be converted to sipx, or you can use the batch convert to convert a whole lot, maybe all the ones in a folder, to convert a whole big set of project files. Of course, that may take quite a bit of time, depending. Earlier versions like SIP7, SIP8, you won't be able to bring those directly into version 10. You would need to open them up in version 9 first, convert them to a SIP9 file. So bringing projects into 10 from previous versions, that's only for the SIP9 files as used by SIDRA 9.0, 9.1. I'll talk now about the user interface. We've made a lot of significant improvements there. It might take you a little time just to get used to it, but I think when you do, you'll find it's a very efficient workflow compared to the past. We've put a lot of thought into these designs, and we hope you'll find it easier and smoother to use. So I'll go through some of the specific changes. Now, the most obvious one you can see here is that the tabs are now in 2 rows. We've changed the highlighting a little bit as well. The top row, file site, network, and so on, is probably familiar to some extent, similar to version 9.1. Note that we don't highlight them in colour, so it underlines the selected tab on the top row. Then there are a second row of tabs, like sub-tabs, you could think of them as, related to what's selected on the first row. So if site here is selected, you can see that there's the site setup, that's things like new site, cloning and so on, and the site reports and displays. Here the site displays is selected, you'll see it's shown in bold. The other improvement we've made, and I think this is very helpful, is to have a search for display tabs. You can see here a output pane split vertically into two different outputs shown side by side, but of course you may have many tabs in each, and I'm sure in the past you've had a lot of tabs open and thought, now where's that lane summary? We've now got a search facility which I'll show to you in a few minutes, and you're able to type in search and identify very quickly the tab you want for the particular report for the particular site or network that you're looking at. So just to perhaps show that, if I bring in the SIDRA interface, I've got some files here, or some sites I should say, that have been processed. There's even network. I could click on the network tab. That selects a network. You can see the sites in the network. Note that under network, in the second tab row, network setup, site reports and displays. Now, of course, they're the sites as they run in the network, not necessarily the same result as running the site individually. But if I go to the site reports, perhaps I select both sites in the network, bring up the lane and movement summaries for those. I might right-click and put them into different tab groups. We know we can drag them around. You can drag that across. Okay, so perhaps I'm going to now go to the network output itself, look at the network summary. Very quickly these rows fill up. Now I'm thinking already, okay, where's the second site network summary? Perhaps I can click on the search button. Now it's just opened up over on the right. I'll bring it across. And you can see listed here for each site and for network the displays and reports relevant to each. So that's a small list. I could probably just click on them, but if it was a much longer list, I can go to search and type in, say, lane. I want the lane summaries, and it's filtered that out, just showing me the 2 lane summary reports. I want the second one. Click on that. You can see the tab becomes active, highlighted in light green in the same way as version 9.1, and the focus onto that lane summary. So I think this is very useful when you've got a lot of output open. You'll find this quite good. So remember that has been introduced. That just sits there. If you don't want it anymore, you can just close it like that. Another thing we've done, I'll just pop back to PowerPoint, is to introduce drag and drop. I'll show you those. So that's searching the tabs. This slide, I probably could have shown this first, but just showing the actions there. That's got a lot of tabs open, and particularly this situation where you can't easily see what's in the tab. They get narrower as you open more of them, and you can use that search facility, and showing here a case with quite a few things open. Drag and drop, right, I mentioned, and this is something we introduced both in the pane here for the list of sites or networks, so you can do this in the project pane. I'll show you in the software in a minute. I will mention that drag and drop is also available in the phase sequence dialog for moving phases. You might remember that horizontal list of phases. Rather than having move left, move right and so on, you can just grab a phase, drag it to the position in the sequence that you want. So that should speed things up quite a bit with the phasing setup. Let's just have a look at this in the context of the software, and we'll just drag and drop something. Maybe I'll go back to the site list. Say I had a look here and I go, oh, site 1. No, I meant that to be in the folder 2. Just click the left mouse button, drag it down. Now I've dragged it here to the bottom. I wanted it numeric order. I want it at the top. Just, sorry, I've got to rename there. Just drag it up. You can see the line that appears. Let the mouse button go and it gets inserted at that point. So again, for sorting these out, this is a lot more efficient than the move up, move down in the past. You can, rather than many repeated mouse clicks, particularly if you've got a lot of sites, you want to move something perhaps down to the close to the bottom of the list of sites. The next feature I'd like to show you is the unique IDs, and this is an important part of, oh sorry, I missed something. Approach order options. Sorry, just let me go back. Sorry, it's in the same slide. I should mention this because it's also important. Site approach output order. Now, if you're familiar with movement summary, which is our most popular output report, and lane summary, many others, they, by default, we've tended to show them starting at the south leg and then in an anti-clockwise order, so south, east, north, and so on. That is pretty common for some jurisdictions, but it doesn't suit everybody. So we've now added an option to select the starting leg and to go either clockwise or anti-clockwise, but also an option to put the opposing legs in pairs. So you put north-south together, then you put east-west. That might suit users in the United States because of the methodology used there. So you might find opposing legs in pairs to be a good option. But also the choice of starting south, north, east, west, wherever you like, will give you a lot more flexibility, and you may be able to get the order in the SIDRA reports to perhaps match other reports and other software that you use. So again, I think that's an important one to know about, and remember that you can configure that. This is currently set up, so lane summary, for example, you can see south, east, west. That's the default we start with, but you could start with east, you could put north and south together. There's no north on this particular one, but you'll, I think, find that quite flexible. So I'll now move on to talking about IDs in the software. We have changed our emphasis, and let me go back to PowerPoint. We've changed our emphasis in program use to make a lot more use of the ID in the which is given in the intersection dialog, but we are now enforcing non-duplication of IDs. We are identifying tabs in output and so on using the ID. So this ID is going to become more important in version 10, and also in things like your network layout, looking at the sites, the IDs are shown. So using the site IDs in a greater way, we are now going to enforce non-duplication of IDs. Now, unfortunately, in the past, it was very easy to have most or all of your sites and networks having the same ID. A lot of site number 101 was a pretty common thing. When you use version 10, the IDs will be created automatically and they won't duplicate. So that shouldn't be a problem using version 10 to create new projects. But when you bring earlier version projects from, say, version 9, I'll show you this in a minute, you'll find that duplicates will occur. You'll get a message when it brings the file, converts to version 10, it's going to show version 10 does not allow duplicate IDs, and telling you to use the edit IDs function to change them. And this is the dialog that opens up for edit IDs. You can see it shows the red highlighting in the tabs where there are duplicates. So this is a case where there's duplicate IDs in both sites and in networks and in routes. So we need to fix all of those. There are various options to fix. You can if there's just one or two, you might just want to manually change it. You can just type a new ID in here, but there are a couple of automatic renumbering options, particularly if you've got 20 sites have come in, they've all got an ID of 101. You could renumber them sequentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can apply a suffix depending on your suffix settings that can be applied. I'll show you a couple of those in the software. Let's have a look. So I'm going to bring in a project file that we've created deliberately with some duplicate IDs. So file open. Don't want to save. Yep, I'll say save. Okay, so now I'm going to find unique IDs US SIP9. I'm going to open that up. So this is a version 9 project file. Note down here it's converting that to the version 10 format. So it takes a few minutes if it's particularly if you've got a lot of sites, a lot of networks. Not too long, so that's finished the conversion, and it's popped up the message. Version 10 does not allow duplicate IDs. It's telling you it's found them, use edit ID. So, okay. And I need to go to my tools, and you'll see here edit IDs under the unique IDs group. Click on edit IDs. That dialog opens up showing sites, networks, routes, all with duplicates. Now, how do I know which are the duplicates? The list is here and the word duplicate appears. So this is duplicates all over the place. This is probably going to be quite painful to change manually. You could type new IDs in here, but let's just see some of the automated options. I could go apply suffix settings. Now, what it's done, 1W, 1E, it's left those, but where 1W and 1E occur elsewhere, it's put a bracket 2. If it occurred again, I don't know if it happens here, but it could even put a bracket 3. You've seen here with that ID of 102. So 102 bracket 2, 102 bracket 3. So it's using a suffix to make them different. Now that was just the sites. I do have the option to apply the fix to all tabs, i.e. networks and routes, but in this case I'll do them one by one just to show the different options. Let's look at networks. The duplicate here is only the number 1 used twice. I could simply type a number. I could put number 2 and the duplication's gone. So very easy. If there's only 1 or 2, just manually type that. Or if there was important information in the ID you'd used previously, I'd recommend either suffix settings or even typing something manually. Let's have a look at the routes. Now I've got some IDs here just to again show this brute force renumber all. If I click that, it simply goes through and renumbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. The IDs for routes only need to be unique within the specific network, so I don't have to make them unique across the whole project. So I click OK. If I don't fix the IDs, I won't be able to process the sites or networks that have duplicate IDs. So keep that in mind. It will come up a lot in the initial stages when you are bringing in the project files from version 9.1. Once you've sorted those out, probably this duplicates problem will go away. As I mentioned, version 10 will ensure that new sites and networks created won't have duplicated IDs. We'll now move back to the PowerPoint, have a look at the next slide, which is telling us about the merge networks function. This has been introduced, and what you're able to do is to join together 2 existing networks. We can see here we've got the BEG4 network, couple of roundabouts and signal, and we have now decided we want to analyse this corridor all together. We've got another network just of these 2 signals. We are going to join this onto the east end of the BEG4 network. So we're able to take this, connect them together, and create a larger network out of 2 smaller ones. I'll show you this in the software. We're going to add this, as I say, to the sorry, this is the other way around. Add it to the west. Okay, sorry, it's probably mirror image because it's driving on the right. Add to the west. I was probably talking about doing the east, which is what I did the other day. Okay, so we're going to put it on the west. I'd better get this right, but otherwise I'll get connection errors. So I said the wrong thing. We're going to join this onto the west end of Beg 4. Okay, so this is a mirror image of the example I did the other day. So apologies for saying east. Okay, so that 2 signals, it's going to come up here on the west end of Beg 4. Go back to the software and we'll go through that process. I need to open up the project, just save whatever I did there. Okay, now this is an important thing too before I go on. I'm saying I'm going to save, it's asking me about saving the project. This is a project that had come from version 9. I had converted it from version 9 to version 10. I fixed up the IDs, so I've made some significant changes. The version 10 project doesn't exist yet, so it's asking me to give a name. It's just by default the same name with the sipx extension, and save that as a version 10 project. So I'll click Save. Okay, it's already there because we did this before. Now it's saved. Okay, now it's asking me what do I want to open. So I want to open up the corridor with roundabouts and signals. Click Open. Now that will bring in the 5 sites you can see here, but if I go to the Network tab, I can see my Beg 4 network. Okay, and I can also see the 2 signals network. Right, so these are the 2 that I want to connect together. So this is, I can actually do a right click, vertical tab group. So I want to join this, let's make it a bit smaller. I want to join this onto the west. So what I'm seeing here, the 2 networks, I'm going to connect them together like this. So how do I do that? Under the Network Setup tab, I'm going to use the Network Setup group, this new Merge Network facility. Now, before I do that, I'm going to show you a couple of things. Firstly, I need to select the network that I'm going to merge into. So I'm going to merge 2 signals into Beg 4. So what will happen is the sites in 2 signals will become part of the Beg 4 network, and that'll of course be a larger network. I'll also show you a new display, which I think is important, this approach distances. So I'm looking at Beg 4. This shows in feet the approach distances that apply within the network. 1600 feet is the default. So within a network, it's very important we have a correct setting for the distance, and we need to make sure that when we connect 2 networks together, this 1600, which is a default, that rather than that we have the actual distance between the sites that we're connecting together. So let's go through this merging process. I'll click Merge Networks. So I've selected the network I'm going to merge into. You can see it there. And what I'll also do is just make this bigger. I'll just also move that across to the right because I'm going to merge this on the west end. Now what network to merge? I need to find the network here. There's only one in this case, but of course there could be many. I'm going to take that. This is very similar to the add network, setting up a network. I drag that in. You see a little symbol there just indicating I'm dragging a network. Let the mouse button go, and there's the network I want to merge in. So I'll just position it how I like, and in the same way we add a new network, we then have to connect the sites, and we do that by dragging that green bar between the 2 grey connection points. Let go. Green means it's okay, but that just means it's okay in terms of the eastbound and westbound distances matching. If they didn't, it would come up in an orange warning colour, but in this case they're equal, but they may not be correct. So I'll now click OK. So my merged network, you can in fact see that the approach distances display has updated. It's showing the 5 sites now in the new network, but note that distance is 1600. Probably that's not correct. I know that's the default. Note the network layout here also updated when I did that. So I need to actually fix up the distances for the connection between sites 3 and 4. And to do that, the quickest way, I think, is to right-click in the Sites in Network, go to the Intersection dialog. So I'm going to do Site 3 West Approach first. Intersection, so Site 3, select the west rather than 1600. Maybe it's 400 feet, say. So I click OK to that. Now note what happens. The 400 is updated, but there's a little footnote now telling me that they don't match anymore. You need to set it for both sites. I haven't set the approach distance for site 4 yet. I'll right click on that, intersection. This time it'll be the east leg, 1600. I'm going to set that to 400. Now I click OK. They match up, the footnote disappears, and it's all done. I've now got my beg-for network containing all 5 sites. In fact, if I close the close all but this, just to get the full screen available, I can make that a bit bigger. So I've now joined these together and I've correctly set the distances between sites 3 and 4. So hopefully you find that a useful feature. And we'll now have a look at some more new things in the program. So I'll go back to our PowerPoint again. And the next thing is the percentile Q output for excess back of queue. This is a fairly big change in terms of the way we report queues within a network. And there has been a lot of user feedback over the years, and the resolution to this, particularly people asking about reporting of percentile queues in networks. We've made this important change we'd like you to be aware of. I've got an example here where there's a signal, or 2 signals, 10 and sites 10 and 12. In between those, we've got a yield-controlled site, so yield sign on the south leg, and the major road between 10 and 12. The distance between 11 and 12 is significantly less than 877 feet. We'll have a look at this example in the software in a minute. We now report the percentile queue as it's belonging to site 12 and however far back it extends. So we're saying a queue forms at site 12, the 95th percentile queue is 877 feet and it extends that distance from site 12. And that's it. We don't report a queue value forming at site 11. This in the past caused some confusion because we took the queue that belonged to 12, then we took the other part that went back past 11, reported that separately as a percentile, and it created quite a bit of confusion. So we've gone for a different method of reporting. It is important to understand that the average queue, which average back of queue, is still constrained to the distance between the 2 sites. So this difference in version 10 relates to reporting of percentile queues. Let's have a look in the software again, and we'll now open up the next project, which will be, let's double check, 3B, open. Yep, I'll save that because I made a big modification. 3B. go to the Network tab, have a look at our network layout so we can understand it first. Now what we're talking about is the queue that extends from site 12 back along the main road past the yield controlled site 11 towards site 10. Now the network has been processed here. So what we'll do is jump quickly to looking at the results. I'll put up that approach distances. Again, that'll just help us with understanding this. So 12 to 11 is 330 feet, 11 to 10, 390. Now if I look at the network output, look at the approach displays for queues. Now it's going to bring up the queue distance in feet, but we'll show displays for both average and percentile queues. So, okay, that'll come up. Now the one I'm seeing here is the one that's in the slide, and that's showing 877 feet. Let me just put that distance to another group so I can just keep in mind what the actual distances are between the sites. So 877 reported, that's the percentile queue extending back from site 12. And you'll note that that percentile estimate is even greater than the distance from 12 to 10. So that's information about percentile queue people want, but what is the extent of that queue? Now, of course, that would extend back, would actually impact the operation at site 10, and because this is a signal site, the queue just doesn't extend through because signal control applies, and that would impact the capacity of all of the movements that go westbound. Now, if I look at the average display, we haven't changed that. So the average queue still constrained to the distance available between the sites. So 330 feet, average queue there. The remaining part of the average queue, that 207, is reported as belonging to site 11A. There are footnotes, this like N5, result determined by average back of queue at a downstream lane. It's explaining, or hopefully explaining how this is being reported. So the important difference in version 10 relates to the reporting of the percentile queue. Okay, I hope that's clear. This is one of the perhaps trickier topics. The other day we ran this and got a few questions. Now, do feel free to ask questions if anything isn't clear or you're concerned about changes and so on. We'll try to explain. We are having a Q&A towards the end of today's presentation. But otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is the import initial demand. This is, again, a very useful feature allowing us to import initial demand at a network level. We're going to use an example here, which is, I'll need to point this out because it's an example actually local to us here in the city of Melbourne, and there's a few slides related to it. Now, because it's in Melbourne and because it's a real-life example, I hope you'll bear with us that this is driving on the left side of the road, and it is important in this context. So this is a freeway in Melbourne. It's huge demand in the morning, queues as far as you can see, in fact queues several kilometres or a couple of miles long. This is very, very significant queuing in the AM peak. This is the network. So you can see the freeway feeds into this road called Alexandra Parade, and it has two signalised intersections that it stops. And of course that's why we're getting very long queues. The freeway's being stopped at these signalised intersections. Because these have a wide median, we've actually modelled them in SIDRA as a what we call common control group. So they're two separate sites with a short connection run by the same signal controller. So one signal controller runs what we're modelling as two sites in SIDRA here. So essentially one facility at Wellington and at Smith Street. Now let's move down a little bit and think about what we need to do in terms of modelling something like this. Because of the very significant demand and long queues and so on in the peak, it's important to use what we call variable demand modelling. We're going to need to import the initial queue demand that occurs at the end of each period. So in this detailed model, we're modelling 15-minute periods, so 7:30 to 7:45, 7:45 to 8, and so on. At the start of each, we're assuming in this case there's no queue at the start of period 1. There could be though, we could have input that. But what we want to know is that the leftover queue at the start of period N2 reflects what was left after the first 15 minutes, which was modelled as part of N1. There's a new facility in the network data, override site data tab, import initial demand. Now, in earlier SIDRA versions, if you've done this sort of modelling, you might be aware that at the site level, you can import initial demand from a site representing the previous period. But of course, in a network, that gets very tedious. We've effectively got 4 sites here. You'd have to go into the site data for each one of those, import the demand. Takes quite a while to do. Now we can do this in one go using the network facility. That will bring in the initial demand from each site and all in one action. We're going to select N1 as the one to import. So we're going to look here at the case of N2, but we're going to import data from the N1. So we're going to say there were no queue at the start of N1. We analysed for 15 minutes. There's queue built up. We want to import that queue as an initial queue demand for N2, which is the 745 model. Okay, and it's showing here. I'll show you these in the software itself. That's for Wellington, which is the eastern one. So we'll have a look at that. And of course, what we'll do for Wellington, we'll look at the southern side. So that's the one with the westbound traffic arriving, and that has come from the freeway. So you can see the numbers there, but I'll show you that in the went too far. Show that in the context of the software. So just spend a few minutes doing this, and we'll see how we do that as a setup in our network. I'll just go back to the program. I need to open up, just checking, 3C. Okay, so because we've got all these examples prepared, just got to make sure I bring the desired one in. So you can see here in the sites, we've got 4 sites, sort of little part of the network. Those 4 sites become part of a network, and you see the folders representing 7:30 to 7:45, 7:45 to 8 a.m. and so on. I'll just show you in terms of a single site. This is a facility that existed in version 9.1. In the lane geometry, lane data, so if I look at the east, you can see there's an initial queued demand here, and you can give it, would be of course for a through lane, and initial queued demand here is set at 123. This has been set up, but I'll show you how this is done for a network. You could actually go and select each lane, type that in, then that's, all that data, that's just for one site. I've got to go to each of the 4 sites. Takes quite a while. You've got to be very careful you match them up and so on. So what we can do now is to have a look at the network. Now what I've done is I've run this network, so I won't process again. If I look at some of the outputs though, say I'll choose network N1, that's the first period from 7:30. I'll look at Wellington Street South, and I'll have a look at its site report lane summary. Now if I scroll down a bit, we do report this initial and residual queued demand. So you can see here the Network 1, this site was actually set up with initial queued demand of 123 vehicles, quite a lot already, but after running for 15 minutes, a couple of lanes, the queues have actually cleared a little bit, but in the lane 2, it's actually increased just due to different capacities, different traffic demands and so on. You can also see the oversaturation. This is value in seconds, but of course this is values between sort of 1 and 2 hours of oversaturation. Unfortunately, that's true. It's pretty bad from about 7 till 9 or 9:30 a.m. So these are probably good estimates. Looking at huge times for the residual demand even to clear. So it's important in the analysis that this is taken into account. So what we want to do is to take the residual queued demands from the N1 run, and we want to put them as initial queued demands for N2. So just remember 145, 83 and so on. Hopefully we'll see those coming into N2. So I'm going to select N2 now. I'm going to go to my network setup, because what I want to do is to do some work on the network inputs and get those demands in. So I do that in the network data dialog. I go to override site data. Now remember, it's N2 I've got selected. I want to bring demand from N1, the first period. So the new item here, import initial demand at the network level. So it's asking us to select the source network. It's the first in the list, so N1 is the one I want to import from, and import into N2, which is the next period. Now there are various options here about getting your sites matched up and so on, but this is happened by default. Match, yes, it's checking that lanes and so on match up, and it looks like the correct sites are selected and so on. And you can move things around, but we won't because they're already set up to match correctly. I'll click OK, and it brings that demand in. And we don't see anything yet, but I'll click OK again so the action's actually done. If I look at Wellington Street South, if I right-click on that, go to the lane geometry data, select the east leg, select one of the through lanes, lane data, and there 145.7 in that lane, 83.7. In fact, if I just pull that aside a bit, 145.7, 83.7. So they match up. So that's been brought in. It's been done for each site. So that, I think, is a big time saver, setting up this type of analysis for a network rather than having to go in and do lane by lane at the site level. So hopefully if you're doing this multi-period analysis with residual and initial demand, this will make it a lot easier for you to do. So I'll just click OK there. I think that winds up this topic. I'm going to pass to my colleague Ian, who's going to tell you about some new sites that we've introduced into version 10.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Okay, so one of the key feature requests that we had with SIDRA 9.1 was the ability to display turbo roundabouts in our layouts. So we have now prepared the turbo roundabout site in SIDRA 10, and here you can see the default turbo roundabout layout on the left hand here, and we have various permutations of it and it is in the software as a template, including this T-shaped turbo roundabout or this Y-shaped turbo roundabout. Now let's show that in the software itself. Okay, So now we have SIDRA 10, and here is the turbo roundabout, which is the default site. So this turbo roundabout is available in the site setup tab, and if you go to the roundabout drop down selection here, you can see turbo roundabout, which is the old turbo icon with the letter T on it. Okay, so when you click on that, it will create this default turbo roundabout with this particular configuration. Now, the thing about this turbo roundabout is that the notice the south right here is going through the motions without the need to be giving way to the through movements that are entering through this channelized turbo roundabout lane in the circulating area. So the setup here is that this south right, similar to the north right, is giving way to 100% to the nearest lane only. So let's have a look at the roundabouts dialog. And here you can see a new parameter that has been introduced is the turbo island parameter here. And this has been set to yes or enabled on the east and west approaches. Here now you can see the very important blue text, which is for turbo roundabout. It's important to review the percent opposed by nearest lane only in the gap acceptance dialog. So I'll just highlight that as of key importance when modeling turbo roundabouts. And if you go to now to the gap acceptance dialog, here you can see that for the south right, the percent opposed by the nearest lane only has been set to 100%. And then if you look at the north, the same thing happens with the north right. So this is exactly how turbo roundabout is modeled in the old SIDRA 9.1. However, in SIDRA 10, you now have the ability to prepare and display the turbo roundabout in graphical form. So here you can clearly communicate that this is a turbo roundabout rather than just a ordinary roundabout with particular parameters that has been configured. Okay. Now, if you process this turbo roundabout and look at the site report and roundabout analysis table report, and in the roundabout basic parameters table, I'll put it in the side here, there's a new column in the roundabout basic parameters table that says turbo island, and you can also confirm that the setting has been enabled in the east and the west. Okay, so the other configurations, such as the Y-shaped turbo roundabout, this is one configuration. If you look at the roundabouts dialog, you can see that the turbo island parameter has been turned on all approaches. And let's have a look at the T-shaped one. Here's the T-shape. And if you look at the roundabouts dialog, again, you can see that the turbo island's been set on the east and west. Okay. Now, there are a few other templates, sites that have been added in SIDRA 10. To just quickly show you in the presentation slide. And we have now a arterial segment, a freeway segment, and a freeway segment with ramps. In SIDRA 9.1, these segment site types are configured as a two-way sign control with only two legs. So it's not really a true segment. It's just simply a reconfiguration of a two-way sign control where you just leave out the minor road and just have the major road. So in the SIDRA 10, we have now introduced these as new site types. Now let's have a look at the software so we can see them in action. Okay, let me close all tabs. Firstly is the segment. Okay, The segment is now available in the site setup, and you can see, you can access that through actually all of the site type groups. So for example, signals is available here. Roundabouts is also available there. Site control so is available there, because it's sort of a generic or general site type that is in some way associated with all of these new site types. So this arterial segment has been configured, and if you can look at the intersection dialog, there's only two legs, so you can only have a straight segment. And this is useful for a number of things. Firstly, is if you're using a useful for networks and to configure the transition from one site type to the next. So you can configure this with, for example, different lane geometries. If I clone this and if I open lane geometry, and I can add a lane drop, for example, so exit short lane, and then we have a particular configuration that goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane on the exit side, and this will connect to another site which has the same lane configuration, so that you'll be able to connect them in a network. Of course, the merge area here will be modeled in more detail in SIDRA 10. I'm going to discuss that in more detail in another topic, probably about 4 or 5 topics down the line. So this merge area, it will be modeled with improved queue modeling, which I'll explain later. Okay, so you can also configure that with various approach speeds. For example, if there's a change in the posted speed limit, this can be modeled here as well and be brought into a network for a more better setup for modeling arterial segments. Now, the other types of that I mentioned earlier is the freeway segment. Okay, the freeway segment, we have this freeway command group here, new freeway. There's a drop down arrow there, and you have the single point interchange, which has been there since in 9.1 as well, but there are now new ones here. Freeway basic segment with 2-way ramps and 1-way. Okay, these are all defaults. Now, if let's bring in one, for example, the basic one. Okay, freeway segment. So it looks like an arterial with a different icon, but this also brings in new defaults so that you can properly configure, easily configure these type of sites. For example, you can see the approach distance is more appropriate for freeway. And if you look at the vehicle movement data, you can see also that the approach and exit cruise speed are more set appropriately for freeway segments. You can, of course, do the same thing with the arterial. For example, you can introduce a lane drop, such as in the lane configuration dialog. You can set one of the lanes there as a short lane, and you can have that kind of a configuration as well. Again, the merge here will be modeled more comprehensively than in SIDRA 9.1, which will be a topic down the line. Let's have a look at the other site type here, which is the 2-way freeway segment with ramps. So you have the on-ramp and the off-ramp. And again, you can see the use of the merge here. This was modeled as a 2-way sign control with giveaway in the SIDRA 9.1 as a template. So it's not really a good representation of this kind of facility. And in SIDRA 10, we now have introduced this new type with proper layouts, and also the merge has been modeled more accurately. So again, this brings in appropriate defaults, such as the length of the ramps, and as you can see, 700 feet, whereas the main line is 3,200 feet, which is more appropriate for a freeway feature such as this. And now this can be brought in together with the other site types, arterial site types in SIDRA, and you can create more appropriate setups such as this. This is a signalized diamond interchange with a freeway. And here you can see the enhancements in the layout, and you can make the network layout with interacting with an arterial feature such as the signalized diamond interchange with the freeway here, more representative of the real world setup. Okay, so here you can see that setup. Now let's have a look at other new features that we will be introducing in SIDRA 10, which is the templates. New ways to interact with templates in SIDRA. Okay, so let me bring in the software. Okay, I'm going to open another file. I'm going to close that. I don't need to save that. I'm going to file open, and I'm going to go to another site, this one. Okay, now now you can see the quick access toolbar here at the top has these two new icons, the blue letter T, which is for site templates, and the green letter T setup here, which is the network templates. So now you can quickly access the site templates and network templates using the quick access toolbar. We still have the site templates command in the site setup and also in the network setup. You also have that. Now let's have a look at the site. Now if we bring in the dialog open, and then here you can see a more interactive display, way to show the selection, a menu of templates that are available to you. You still have the template group here available to you. So signals, roundabouts, sign control, freeway, and pedestrians. This is the same template group in SIDRA 9.1, but now you have this new display mode, and you can have the option to have a list view. If you click on one, you can see the preview of each template, and you can have a more compact list here. So if you want to which we do have a plan to add more, you'll be able to see more on this list here with a compact view, or you can have tiled view, so you can have a more easy preview, and you can have multi-select for each display mode, and you have a medium-sized tiles here, which is depending on your screen setup. And if you have bad eyesight like me, I kind of like the large tiles, so I can clearly see what I want to bring in. The other thing that you'll notice is there's also a choose destination folder. In SIDRA 9.1, it will just go to a default site folder, but we'd like to have more flexibility, and you don't need to create one and then transfer it to the folder that you prefer. In this particular dialog, you have the option now to go directly to the folder that you want the site template to be created in, such as here. And then if you click one of those, it will open into the folder that you have already pre-selected. Okay. Now, going to network now, we also now have introduced the same setup. So you have the template group. The template group here is the same as SIDRA 9.1. Different types of the templates are organized into groups such as the alternative intersections, interchanges, paired intersections, roundabouts, and two-stage crossings. And you also have the display mode. So you now have a list view with the title, description, and some text here to give you some information about the particular template. Or if you want a more compact list, because you don't have to scroll up and down, you can go to the compact view, and you can see more templates in the dialog in one shot. Now, You also have the small tiles and medium tiles and also the large tiles. Okay. Now, here at the bottom, similar to the site, we have now flexibility in choosing the destination folder. Where will this template be created in? And you have two options. The first one is the network folder, where will we put the network in? Okay. So you have the option on what is available here, or to create a new folder if you prefer. Now, the site folder is where the network sites will be created in, and you also have the option to either put it in one of the existing folders or to create a new one altogether. This is useful when you want to, for example, merge in or combine two show to be able to combine the two networks together. So you need to put them in the same site. So having the option to choose the destination folder allows you to circumvent additional steps of having to create sites in a folder and move them to the folder that you want to have all your network site folders in. So having that flexibility sort of gives you a more quicker and more tidier workspace, but by not having any unnecessary folders in your project file, such as here now I created this particular template and with the appropriate network sites in the folder of my choosing. Now, let me just go back to a few more examples here on site templates, in particular the roundabout one. So here in site templates, we have the roundabout site templates, and here you can see in large tiles display. I can even make it more bigger, and it's resizable. If you have a bigger screen, you can have more that you can see, and it's much more easier to access this and have a view of what's available. And if you use it, that's too slow, but it's too large, I can have medium-sized tiles. And here you can see what I showed earlier, the turbo roundabouts. Okay, and in the future we'll add more to this, and this kind of a dialogue just allows us to be able to prepare the infrastructure or the framework for you to be able to access these templates better. Now, similar to that, I'll just quickly highlight some of the roundabout network templates that we have. And here you can see the double roundabout interchange, a very popular one. Double teardrop roundabout interchange, double teardrop roundabout. This is like dog bone or peanut roundabout, also one of the more popular templates that we have. Fully signalized roundabout, and this one also very popular, properly used, which is the Dutch roundabout. Or we have roundabouts with pedestrians, even have a two-way bicycle circle, or unsignalized ped crossing on all legs of a roundabout. These are just all useful templates that we have. Okay, so that's sort of illustrates to you all of the new additions for our templates dialog, and you can see the site and network template dialogues improvements that we have prepared, and we'll continue to enhance the network templates and site network templates in future SIDRA versions. So I think that concludes topic 5 on site and network template dialogues enhancements that we have done with SIDRA 10, and we are now coming to a break, and for a 10-minute break, and then after the 10-minute break we will have Mark coming back to discuss something very useful and very important enhancements in our signal timing analysis space, and that would be a very informative session for you. So for now, it's been a while, and we're listening, and it's time for a break. So enjoy your 10-minute break, and we'll be back then. So I'll pause the session for now.
Hello, Mark Besley back with you to cover the next topic, which is signal timing analysis. This is something that was one of the major efforts with version 10. We've made some very significant changes and some things people have been asking about for many years. So a quick summary, we've gone to, bear with me with this pointer option. The signal timing analysis can now include all input and output as real numbers. So, for example, a yellow time could be specified as 3.5 seconds. Earlier versions, you were stuck with having to have the nearest integer value. Multiple green periods is a key thing. There was a limitation in earlier versions. You couldn't have more than 2 green periods. Particularly with things like public transport, buses, light rail and so on. Also with more sophisticated signal sequences, this was becoming a limitation. Critical movement analysis to take that into account. The early cutoff and late start are now much more flexible. They can be specified per phase. We've improved the capacity estimation model for unsignalised bypass lanes, taking into account the fact they're not controlled by signals and looking in a better way at the opposing movements. And of course, going along with all these changes, new performance models were developed. So I'll now go through these in detail and we'll have a look at some examples. We'll jump in and out of the software a bit as well. Okay, so first thing is the real numbers for signal timing. So earlier versions, your yellow time had to be 3 or 4. You couldn't specify, say, 3.5. So a simple change, but a very significant one, allowing you to more accurately put the value used in your signal controller. The green periods, I'll go to the software in a minute and show you some more detail. What we're seeing here are 3 green periods for the left turn movement. I think this is running permitted, protected, just as an illustration. And also noting we're using multiple green periods to better model the bypass lane. And you can see here, like intergreen, 4.5 seconds, obviously 0.5 in the yellow time, probably contributing to that. In the movement timing diagram output, again, you can see the extensive use, the real numbers for the phase times. They were also in the past rounded to the nearest integer value, but you can see 45.1 and so on as the phase time shown to 0.1 of a second. You can see the effective signal timing shown, again, real number values and indicating multiple green periods for some of the movements. So that's the left turn, which is showing 3 separate green periods within the cycle. Note the right turn bypass lane, still 3 green periods, but 2 of them running into each other because the movement is not stopped by any signal. So in this case, no effective red there. Effective red time still exists due to the effect of opposing movements. So again, we'll go through and have a look at some of these in the software itself. So I think we saw this slide already. Okay. I'll also point out a bit more detail about the bypass lane. So you can see the right turn going from south to east. So it's a eastbound movement, south to east, right turn. The movements that run against that are the west, so eastbound traffic coming from the west approach. And you can also see that the left turn coming from the north. Both of those oppose the bypass lane. So although there are no signals controlling the bypass lane, you can see the effective red would come up. So what we're seeing here is 2 effective red periods. That's where the probably higher volume movement running against it, which is the one coming from the west, and also a short amount of effective red, whilst the right turners have to stop and wait for the north-left movement to clear. Rest of it in that case is green. In the displayed timing outputs for this, we show where the intergreens are in this grey. They don't particularly affect, or don't directly affect, the bypass lane movement, but it's good to know the position of those intergreens because they do, of course, affect the opposing movements. So you can see intergreen here, but the movement from the west is starting up after that intergreen. That just helps you to understand where you are in the cycle. So we'll go to the software, I think, and have a look at some of these. I'll come back to critical movement analysis. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's just look at some of these topics. So just running through the real numbers, the multiple green periods. I'll come back and talk more about critical movement analysis in a minute. Okay, so software should be there. Okay, so let's look. In fact, I think I'll choose the second one. So what I've got, two sites here. They're just set up a little bit differently, but let's firstly see some of the places where we would enter real number values. If I go to phasing and timing, okay, I can see here the phases are set up using our US default numbering scheme. And if I look at some of the data though, like phase and sequence data, note the yellow time or red. Okay, so these happen to be rounded numbers, but I can look elsewhere. I could type anything I like. I can type 3.5. So that real number, I think that's a very significant improvement to the software. Timing options, again, a user given cycle time, user given phase times can be given to 0.1 second precision. That might be the number you get out of your signal controller logs. You say, oh, it was running a cycle time of 123.4, and you can enter that number directly. Same with the phase times. Now, some important changes in the movement data, but I'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. Let's have a look at the implications. I'll just mention a little bit more about the green periods. I can see the phase sequence here, and you can see for a movement like the slip lane movement, the dark colour indicates that it's a permitted, like it's nothing, it's having to yield to opposing traffic. The lighter colour indicating it's not having to yield. So we separate those now into separate green periods. So that'd be one green period. Those two together would be, in fact, 1, 2, 3 together for south right would be another green period. Then there's another one where it's having to yield to the west through. That becomes a third green period, as we saw in some of those outputs. I'll also mention specifically for the US case, a little bit subtle, but you can see the pinkish colour for the right turns. That indicates right turn on red is allowed here. And of course the right turn on red period is treated like an effective green. So although there's a red signal, the movement can go. They need to stop, they need to yield to any conflicting traffic, but other than that, they are treated as though there was a green. They're not shown as an effective red period. In fact, if I cancel this, have a look at the site reports, have a look at the movement timing. So that was east and west. If I look at east and west, you can see that the right turn movement, there are two effective green periods. One of those is when it's actually turn on red. I'll show you in the timing analysis as well. You can see the bypass lanes, you can see when they're opposed, but also you can see for the east-right, you can note that Y under the heading opposed, that means there is some traffic running against it, and that is actually the turn on red period there. So that's modelled as well. Again, take note of the various real number outputs. There's no integer values shown anymore. So I think we've made some good improvements there. Let me just check time's going okay. Now I want to talk a little bit as well about the critical movement analysis and also the early cutoff and late start. If I look at the critical movements, okay, this display's been there since version 9, I think, but we'll note, in fact, I'll do this for the other example. Critical movements, just want to make a point there. When we have multiple green periods, now this movement number 7 in this case is showing bracket 1 and bracket 3, and that means that this movement number 7, which is the north left turn, has more than one green period. In fact, it has 3 green periods, as we saw before, and to identify which green period is part of the critical movements, bracket 1, so it's movement 7, it's the first green period, that's critical there. But then movement 7 again, but in this case the third green period is critical. So that critical movement diagram used to use the letters F and S for first and second green period, but of course with any number of green periods available, up to 20 actually, we can't use letters anymore. Like letter F could be first, fourth, fifth, for example. So now putting that as a number for the green period, that's just a change it's important to be aware of. Note all the times here, required times shown as real numbers, but I think that was the case in earlier versions as well. There's also a facility to introduce a late start or early cutoff for a movement. So that means we start a particular movement later than others on the same leg. So perhaps we've started up the west leg, but we're starting up the right turn a few seconds later. That might be for pedestrian protection. It might be something to do with public transit, light rail, sharing the same road. Various reasons you may do that. Also for common control groups, we can use early cutoff and late start to get some effect of offset between the two parts of a common control group. So there are a lot of uses for early cutoff and late start. In the past, they were given in the vehicle movement data dialog. The problem with that was that this data is not specific to any phase. It applies to the movement as a whole. That meant there was no flexibility if a movement ran in more than one phase to say that it had a late start in one phase but not in another. So we've taken it away from the vehicle movement data. We are now specifying early cutoff and late start as part of our phasing and timing. So there's a phasing and timing dialog, movement data. If I select a particular movement, I'm not sure if any are set here, but you can select a phase and select where a particular movement starts. So here we are, phase 2.6. The right turn from the west leg has an early cutoff of 3 seconds. So this is again a new facility in terms of being able to give it in the movement data tab, therefore giving it per phase, and that will give you a lot more flexibility with your modelling of this. I'll now have a look at some of the outputs related to that. If I go to the timing analysis, we've made some important changes here. I've shown you Y for opposed. There used to be some other Ys in the columns here, but we've split this up and we now show yes indicating, Y for yes indicates here late start for that green period of that movement. So for green period 3 of north left, late start specified. red arrow drop off, which is where we're going to go to a filter turn, but we display a red arrow at the start of the phase, and then that red arrow disappears. That can be modelled. It's been specified here. Early cut-off shown for a couple of other movements as well. So we've broken this into a second table within this report, so we can give you more information about these parameters. Priority undetected, not specified here, but Y would appear if it did. So these are important changes to the output to assist you. Now let's go back to the PowerPoint, just make sure I haven't missed anything. So we'll run through. We've seen the real numbers. We've seen the multiple green periods. I've shown you the timing diagram, which has both a effective time mode you can select, or I think a little bit later, the displayed time mode can also be selected. It's up to you whether to show effective or displayed times. The real numbers, again, showing here for various timing parameters. Again, something people have been asking for a long time. I showed you the critical movement analysis for this movement with multiple periods, movement 7, period 1 and period 3 shown, and the number in brackets to indicate which green period is part of that diagram. Early cut-off and late start, we've seen have been moved to the phasing and timing movement data tab, and of course real number input available there if required. The lane widths, pedestrian crossings, I'm now going to pass to my colleague Ian to tell you about the changes we've made there. So over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so in SIDRA 9.1, there are a couple of key limitations, and which led to many of our users requesting a particular feature. The first one is that there are a lot of cases in SIDRA 9.1, in the case of a shared slip lane, such as the here on the north, there is only one parameter to set the lane width. So that means whatever lane width has been specified for the normal lane also gets used for the calculations on the slip lane. Typically, it's not a big issue, but there are now a lot of cases where we have this pedestrian crossing, and there have been a few cases wherein there's a stark difference between the lane widths of the normal lane and the slip lane. So we then now have to worry about the capacity due to the pedestrian crossing here on the north slip lane. So in that case, we need to have a new parameter to specify separately the lane width of the normal lane and the slip lane. Okay. The other key limitation in SIDRA 9.1 is the inability to have a ped crossing on a continuous lane, such as here a low angle slip lane. And there have been a lot of cases where this is actually have a ped crossing here. So it is not possible to do that in SIDRA 9.1, but which would then necessitate a bit of a clumsy workaround to be able to specify a ped crossing in this kind of a setup. So we have introduced a number of changes to SIDRA 10, which I'll now show you. Okay, I'll go to the software. It's the same example I've seen in the PowerPoint slide, and here you can see these new features that I have now shown earlier. So here you can see there's a slip lane, shared slip lane here on the north. Let's have a look at lane geometry. And go here. All right. North. All right. So here you can see a new parameter, slip lane width. and this is not in SIDRA 9.1. What was there before was that there's only one lane width, and that is usually specified to be for the normal lane, and it's just simply assumed to be the same with the slip lane. So here you can specify different lane widths, and you can specify either a much even more wider than that, and you can see the layout also gives you a visual cue that the lane widths are different between the normal lane and the slip lane. Also, I highlight another parameter here you can see, which is the lane width upstream, which is the lane width here. And that lane width is not used for modeling at this point, although it prepares us for future feature on modeling of this upstream lane width, but it does help in the preparation, in the creation of layouts for networks, which I'll clearly show you later on where it could be useful, in particular for roundabouts. Okay. Now, here on the south, I also mentioned earlier about the ability to create a bed crossing on a continuous low-angle slip line. I'll show you. So, no. And let's go to pedestrians dialog. And here on the south, then you have this low-angle slip lane here. And this used to be blocked in SIDRA 9.1. Now this is now become available to you because there has been a number of real-world applications where in this particular situation you'll have a bed crossing. So when that is now applied, you can now model that in SIDRA. Now let me process this. Hopefully I didn't make much changes. All right. And now in site reports, then you have the PED analysis report, which we have expanded in SIDRA 9.1. And in the PED analysis report, there is now a slip lane and signalized crossing analysis table. And here you can see the conflict zone length, which now utilizes the lane widths that I have mentioned earlier. And with that, we have the gap acceptance parameters that's been calculated, and the capacity of the slip lanes, taking into account the presence of a PED crossing, such as here in the low angle slip, and also taking into account the slip lane width that has been now a new parameter that's been made available to you. Okay, so these are sort of a good features to have to us real world practice now. SIDRA keeps up with features that are used in the real world. Now, I promised you earlier about showing this application of the upstream lane width, and this is actually relevant in cases of roundabouts. Let me bring in a roundabout. Let me make sure that I'm customary. All right, so I'll bring in a 2-lane roundabout. All right, I'll put that there. I'll close that. Now, this is a you're familiar with. This is a default roundabout site. And if I go to lane geometry, typically for roundabouts, the entry lane width is much wider at the roundabout entry. And sometimes when you connect this site to a signalized site, for example, or a segment, the connection of the layout is not so smooth because there's only one parameter, and that parameter of the entry lane width is assumed to be the same at the mid block. So now we have a new parameter called the lane width upstream width, which you can specify. Here you can see the difference between the entry lane width and the upstream lane width. Now this upstream lane width for the moment is used only for layout purposes and not used for modeling performance. But perhaps in the future, this could come in handy for improving also performance modeling. But for the moment, please be aware that such parameter is now available to you for tidying up the layouts. For example, I'll show you one example for some interchanges, double roundabout interchange. Okay, so double roundabout interchange. Now here you can see that you have control of how wide this layout will look like on the internal mid-block here by changing the upstream lane width. So for the moment you can see it's 13 and 12, and that's, sorry, here 13 and 13, because this is like a bridge and so we're maintaining the width of the lanes consistently on the internal segment. So now you have that control. Okay, now I'm going to show you another key feature, which is the exit lane widths, exit merge queue modeling. So this is also another key feature that has been widely requested. Firstly, note that we have changed the default merge type in SIDRA from the priority merge to a zipper merge. Reason being is that in congested conditions, even though it's line marked as a priority merge, the actual operation is a zipper merge. So many of our users get caught up and say, oh, why is the delays overestimated by SIDRA? And we noted that actually the real world operation is zipper, although it's line marked as priority, because under congested conditions, sort of motorists tend to give way to each other in such operation, such as here we observe in Australia. That happens a lot. So having it as a priority merge and leaving it there, sometimes our users could leave that out and get some results that are contrary to what you would observe or experience in the real world. So therefore, we have changed the default to zipper merge, which is more safer operation because we want to get the performance more accurate under congested conditions than otherwise. Okay, so let me now bring in the merge one. So file open, no, and I bring in the 8. Now the other thing that we have specified improved in SIDRA 10 is the modeling of the merge itself. So in SIDRA 9.1, we calculate the merge delay, but we don't calculate the queue. So now in SIDRA 10, we are now calculating the queue. And if you go to process this, site reports, and you look at lane summary, and you look at the lane summary report, you can see a merge analysis table with expanded list of outputs, which now includes the merge queue. This merge queue here is measured from the point of the merge all the way upstream. So how much of that is queuing on the merge? And you can see here it's expressed either in vehicles or in distance. Now, if the merge overspills onto the upstream lanes, that will also be taken into account and added to the upstream lane queues, and that will then, if the merge queue is longer than the queue being generated at the stop line. So we take into account the queue storage that is available on the exit short lane, and as well as the queue being generated by the upstream lanes. We compare that and find out what is the excess merge queue that will be added onto the upstream lane queues here on the approach side, and that will take care of any queue blockage effects of the merge if there's any. So this merge queue here is measured from the point of merge, and then we also measure the excess queue that's passed over to the upstream lanes, and that is available in lane queues table in the detailed output report. Here, merge queue NBX is the average excess backup queue from the exit merge that is added onto the approach lane queues. Okay, so that is now the some big enhancements in terms of the modeling of the exit merge in SIDRA 10, which is not available in SIDRA 9.1. So I think that concludes topic 8. We have a we're ahead of time, but I think it's good to have a bit of a break before we proceed to the next session, which is on SIDRA Maps. So can we have a quick 4-minute break just for you to grab a cup of coffee, because I know it's not the best of times for some of our audience. So we'll take a quick 4-minute break and we'll be back with Mark showing the SIDRA maps.
Okay, Mark Besley, back with you. I hope you've made use of a few minutes break. The other day we ran this and people said they'd like a bit more break time. So we're back now and we're still sticking with the program time. So I'm now going to take you into SIDRA MAPS. Now this is again another exciting and major addition to version 10. We've had map extract. You're probably familiar with that. We introduced that a while ago. In fact, I'll be honest, I was surprised how popular it was. That map extract if you haven't used it, allows you to get a site data input by selecting a site from a map. So we use OpenStreetMaps as a background. You're able to go and click on it. Of course, you've probably got to do a bit of cleaning up and a bit of adjustment, but as a starting point to create a new site in SIDRA, it's quite handy and it's been very popular. Of course, the extension to that, as soon as we had a link to a map, people are saying, well, why can't I see my network on a map, and why can't I see where all the sites are on the map? So this idea of a map background has led us into this new SIDRA Maps and Map View facilities that I'm going to show to you. So again, I'll mention, I'm aware most of you are in countries where driving on the right-hand side of the road, but because we're making use of a specific network, just keep in mind that this demo is relating to a suburb of Melbourne, Frankston, southeast of the city of Melbourne, and it's driving on the left because it's here in Australia, but this certainly works perfectly well for driving on the right-hand side of the road. This Frankston network, we like it because it's rather complicated and has different types of intersection control and quite interesting layout. So for that reason, we'll be using that for our demonstration today. When we open up the map view, we can see all this detail from OpenStreetMaps. You can see the streets, the street names. There's a railway line going through, which of course partly explains the shapes of some of the roads. Big bridge here over the top of the railway, and even shown down to the view level of individual buildings. Now, of course, we are reliant on what is in the base OpenStreetMap. They don't always have buildings in every place, but usually these maps are pretty comprehensive and are available for the whole world. You can go into OpenStreetMaps, extract an area like this of interest, and use that as the basis for your SIDRA Maps view. So within the view, we can tidy it up. If we're not, for instance, worried about seeing the buildings, you can turn them off. I'll show you some of that layer control. This is a separate window that opens up. I'll show you that in the software as well. Map extract is still there. You click on a site that has that selection available. Once you've linked this site up to your software, then it's got an icon of the control type. Clicking on that allows you access to various menus, which I'll show to you as well. And of course, like any map, abilities to pan, zoom in and out. When you go to network modes, there's two modes. There's a sites mode and a networks mode. If you click on networks, which is shown here, it shows the if you've got the network defined in SIDRA, all these green lines going along the roads that are part of the defined network in SIDRA. So we're able to see the network we've defined and work with that. You can even click on that to access various network settings. And you can see here a couple of the pop-up menus. Right-clicking on the network link brings up this network menu. Clicking on the site type icon like the signal. Gives you other options, all the site input there, and ability to select sites as well. So let me now go to the software and I'll show you this setup. So I've already opened up the project, Frankston Network. You can see the sites listed here. So there's sites numbered sort of 1 to 10, but not consecutively. So whatever I've decided to name my sites, but also, of course, the site IDs are very important here. If I go to network layout, this is the traditional SIDRA network layout view. I'm sure you're familiar with that. That hasn't changed. And what we're going to do now, though, is to see how this hooks up to the map view. So there's a new tab that wasn't in earlier versions called Maps. I'm going to click on. I'll go to Show Map Window. Okay, which is really the key to opening this up. Now, at the moment, what this is doing, it's showing me the list of sites that are in the network, but there's no map load. It's saying, please load a map file. Well, I will. All these have little X's, just that symbol indicating we don't have the map in, and we don't seem to have the link. But let me firstly open the map and explain what happens. So I'll click Open Map File, Complex Frankston Network that's been brought from OpenStreetMaps. All these lose their little X's, and I can see here the sites in the network have appeared on the map. Now, someone asked last time, how did that actually happen? The process here is that these sites exist in the SIDRA project. These sites have coordinate information, so latitude, longitude recorded as part of the site data, and that is how these sites are linked to a location on this map. So it's done via coordinates. Of course, this coordinate information is important. If I right click on site 1, set coordinates, that's the latitude, longitude of that center point of site 1. Okay, I'll just cancel that. Don't want to mess things up. So that's the site over here. And that's how that relationship exists between the maps and the rest of the SIDRA data. Now, note that the maps is in an independent window. I can drag it around. I can move it off screen, whatever I like. I can control that. It doesn't affect my ability to do things in the main. I can select sites. I could even edit input data and so on. So these are both open, but they're not locking you out of the other one. Now I've got my network. Okay, I'm in sites mode. Let's just see a couple of things I could do. So if I right click on, now just note here, site 4B currently selected. If I right click on the icon for site 1 and I go add to selected sites, that should be, it's because I'm in the network. So let me go back here to the sites list. Okay, site 1 selected. Let's choose another site. Okay, click on the icon, select add to selected sites, site 1, site 2 now selected. So I was in sites mode. I do have to be sites and sites sort of to get something happening. I have to be looking at the sites here in the site mode and have site mode selected here as well. So I'm able to directly access locations. So right clicked on that pin, I can copy the location, reset view just takes me back. I think it recenters the map. Of course you can zoom like that or with the mouse wheel, various options to pan to selected site, so select site 5 and go pan to selected site. So it moves, expected to go to site 5. Maybe I got the wrong one selected. Let's not worry too much. So various commands here to help you with getting to where the site is in a large network you're looking at. But also you can control the view quite a bit. So there's options here to show or hide selected sites. So site 1, if if I click on that, it disappears from the map. Okay, maybe I'm only interested in this central bit. So you can certainly turn that on and off. You can do other options with the site. So if I right click, you can see all the site input, for example. You can copy location data, selections on even a layout picture of the SIDRA layout picture of the site. If I go to network view, it actually shows me the networks, the streets in the network, and you can compare that to the SIDRA network. So you can see it's correlating to what's shown there. I can right click on a connection there, modify network, allows me access to the network input data as well. So a lot of interaction between the two, but the really good key thing about this is it's showing me on a real street map background, it's showing me the SIDRA network and SIDRA sites that have been defined. Okay, I think that's enough time on SIDRA Maps. Better stay on schedule. I'm now going to pass to Rahmi, who's going to tell us about the volume store and scenario analysis, another big new feature in version 10.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I just got it. Now, I think my screen is being shown, so I should open number 10, our example. I'll show the network, which includes the sites. Okay, what I'll do is first tell you a little bit, just make you a little bit familiar with this feature on the software, then go to slides, then come back to this again to show you more details. Now, the first thing I want to say is that this is one of the most major improvements in this version. You will see a volume store tab, which we didn't have before. So in this volume store tab, if I click that, sub-tab is site volumes. So that's the volumes used to you've been entering in the volumes, site volumes dialog. Now, there is the ability to enter those volumes in what we call volume bins, site volume bins, in bin folders, in bins which can be organized into different ones. Like in this example, I have 4 bins. First folder is for the AM peak flows. The other one is for the PM peak flows. Now I have 2 sites. I have 2 sets of volumes. So I have site 1 and site 2.1. Now we have seen the question like why did we go for unique IDs? This is so important that like we can talk now and link sites and bins and so on. That user ID is really important in that one. But let me go to my example so you understand it better. Now, I have 2 scenarios. This is the word scenario here is the design scenario, not the volume scenarios, which I'll be talking about. So 2 alternative treatments, if you like, network 1 and network 2. Now, I'll open. You see in these tabs, I can see it is N1, it is N2. This is a big improvement too. New vertical tab. Make it small so you can see both. And the same. One more. Okay. Now, site 1, intersection 1 is exactly the same. But the design of site 2 differs. So I call them 2.1 and 2.2. Now in 2.1, I have more generous design. This side road has got 3 lanes, exclusive lanes, and the main road has got a exclusive left turn lane as a short lane, a turn bay. But in in this design, and 2, it's more restricted, 2 lanes only on the side and 2 lanes on the main road. Obviously, the timings of that intersection will change, any coordination will change, etc. So I want to assess these designs. Now, the volume I need for 1 is 1 set for AM, 1 set for PM. Volume for 2, 1, and 2, it is the same volume. So I only need 1 AM and 1 PM, although I have now in total like 4 sites. If I keep cloning them the way we have been doing in 9.1 and all the versions to date. So how do we do that? Now, before that, I'll go back to the slideshow and I'll click that. Now, let's start from the start. So I'll be talking about the volume store, which contains bins. We always have the sites, and now we assign volume scenarios to sites by linking to bins. Now, do you want that? We recommend that it will increase the efficiency of your analysis, sites, individual sites, as well as networks. When you start looking at many volume scenarios, like existing AM, PM, even day peak and weekend peak and development volumes and the future volumes and all those, in version 9.1, you kept clone and clone and clone, right? Repeating the same volume for different designs. So it created many sites, many networks. Now, however, it's optional. You can, if you wish, you can continue SIDRA the way you have been using. You don't have to use this, but we strongly recommend you learn this and make use of it for the efficiency of your work. Now, if you don't use it, for sites, we create volume scenarios, but we specify them by linking to the bins, to the volumes given in the volume store. We don't have to retype. We don't type in the sites anymore. But if you don't use the volume store, you continue the same. But there is a scenario, default scenario name given to what we have been doing, which is local volumes, local in the site. It's given in the site dialog, like local to the site dialog. So that's the default. If you don't use it, you use that one. In the volume store, there are bins. For each bin, there are 2 dialogs only. One is a bin setup, which works like giving a name to bin and an ID to bin, and that's also has to be unique. And if sites are linked to this bin, or it's a 2-way, whichever way you express that, scenarios using bins are just given here, like 2 sites, because it is for site 2, there is for 2 different site designs, if you like, intersection designs. The same bin has been used. Then there's other tabs. We like to match the geometry of the bin to the site. It is much less confusing, although they don't have to match. Like you can have extra legs and extra volumes in there and so on for whatever the reason. And the site, when you link by way of scenario to the site, it will only use the ones which are in the site. Like what matches are picked up. But it is much less confusing. You'll know what you are doing much better. In fact, I'll come to that, like in which order you do bins and sites, so that there's least work and there's least confusion. The other dialog is the volumes, but for the bin dialog for volumes. This is actually the same format as the site ones. But what you see here is the vehicle volumes, vehicle volume factors, which we always had, but also pedestrian volumes. So this is new. So even in the site, now pedestrian volumes are given in the volumes dialog together with vehicle volumes. Because there were lots of issues. People missed out giving the pedestrian volumes. It has very significant effect on the analysis results, especially for signalized intersections because of their actuation probabilities and so on. But at the same time, they had to be in a bin together with the vehicle volumes. So by necessity, we have reformatted. So don't be confused. Now, here what you can do is import volume data from the site, from another bin, from another project. That functionality is there. But just the same, for setting up a bin structure of legs, the geometric configuration, you can also import site setup. So if you have an existing project, you have already set up the sites, all you have to do is, okay, a new bin, click the new bin button and import site setup. It will pick up all the necessary things. So there isn't much work, in fact, that way. Now, there is also a function which is site volume calculator. It allows you to actually combine two volume sets to different bins. Like you can add them, apply factors to them, and so on. It is like existing volumes. You have in another bin development volumes. Then you say, put them together. I want to analyze that, and then link it to a site. So this generates a new bin. Or a calculator will always generate a new bin as combination of existing bins, adding the volumes and applying factors and so on. But also you can pick just one bin through these options, just the first option, just an individual bin, and apply flow scales, increase, decrease, apply growth rates. In this example, 10 years uniform growth, it will apply to your existing volumes and then put it into a different bin, which you can then use. There are a few other options here. Now, if you understand this diagram, you'll understand what we are doing better. Otherwise, you may not just imagine sort of what's going on here. Okay, in the SIDRA project, we always had the sites, right, in this example. So in this example, not the example I have shown you, but this is a more basic one, just dealing with a site. There are 3 sites which may represent the same volume condition, AM and PM, but site 1 could be the signalized intersection solution, site 2 roundabout 2 lanes, site 3 roundabouts 1 lane. So these are like sites are for design options if you like. But my volumes, now I put in volume store by creating bins, just 2 bins, bin AM and bin PM. Then in the site, for the sites, I have site scenarios dialog. I go in there and I say, generate an AM scenario, generate PM, AM scenario generation. All I have to say is that link it to the AM bin. The same. So I'm not putting volumes into the site. All I'm saying is that I have a scenario here. Here is the volumes. So you can see to the 3 sites, the same AM volume set applies through this without typing, without cloning the sites. Now, if I didn't have this system, as in previous versions, I would have to clone each of them or import the same volume from one to the other and so on. 3 of them. So same with PM, that is done twice. So if you had done this in previous versions, you would have to clone these 3 sites, so you end up with 6 sites. First 3 with AM volumes, the next 3 with PM volumes, which you had to generate, put in them. So this way, I reduced the number of sites I need to have to 3. Now just imagine you have many more volume scenarios, many more of these bins, and for each of them you have to clone these sites, like you end up with a large number of sites. So we use scenarios to link bins to sites. That's all. Back to the example that I'll show you. I've already shown you site 2 differs in its alternative designs, but site 1 is the same, and site 2, 1 and 2 to have the same volumes. So the workflow we recommend: prepare your sites and networks as you have always done. There's nothing new. Or you may have an existing project you want to restructure it using volume store, because you'll be doing more work on that. Then prepare your volume bins. The structures are set using the import site setup because you already have them, so not much work. Then go to the sites, use the site scenarios dialog. To specify a site scenario, all you have to say is link to this bin. Network scenarios. Now, if you have different network designs, as I have shown you, then in the network scenarios dialog, use link to the site scenarios. What we advise is that make a table of your, sites, put your site IDs, because that's key now, like they'll be unique. You won't be confused with repeated sites. Which one was that one? You know which one it is. And type up, okay, I want to give the scenario IDs, that is scenario name, I'll give it AM existing. Then I'll have another one, AM development volumes, AM future with development, and so on. So make your table, then follow that in specifying your scenarios, linking to the bins, and also firstly creating the bins, then linking to the scenarios to the bins, then network scenarios linking to the site scenarios. Now, this is the example of, this is the flow chart, if you like, for the example which I've been talking about. I'll just check my time. Okay, I've been going slow with this. So this is similarly, sites and bins are linked together, but network scenarios are linked to the site scenarios. So network scenario AM, all you have to do is say it links to the site 1 scenario AM and the site 2 scenario AM. The details, you can learn later. Now I'll show, escape, and go back to the program, and I'll quickly show where they are and how they look. Volume store, a bin. Let me close this so your attention is focused on this. If I double click one bin, I'll see the volumes in them for vehicles and pedestrians. This is under the volume store tab, site volumes, secondary tab, which we only have this one. I'll just mention that this system is also created for the forthcoming version 11 assign volumes. All the network origin destination volumes will also be created according to the system, this system, and only according to the system. So you better learn, while we have this only for sites and like straight networks, not traffic assignment. So that's why we have this. Then another one will appear, site assign volumes, like OD metrics to store here. So you don't have it at the moment. We did develop it already. Now, so there is a project pane for the volume store, which shows you the bins organized into folders, and the two dialogues. The first one, bin setup, as I've shown you, name, etc., what is linked to it, leg geometry matches and movement classes and approach movements, because all the volumes are by movement class, light vehicles, heavy vehicles, buses, bicycles, and so on. And the volumes themselves, much like the site volumes, and pedestrian volumes are now here. So also in dialog displays includes shows volumes here, but in sites, now I think I'll go to the sites, site, pick up say 2.1 and show you the volumes dialog. Now with the in dialog displays, you always have layout, you have volumes. Now volumes are shown here in the picture, but in the volume table you see, you only see it. You cannot change it here because it is coming from site scenarios AM bin. But if I change it to the local volumes, now I can change them. Okay, like all this changing in the picture, etc. Will be available. Sorry, you have to click into the table and type in there if you want to. But it is typing here as in previous versions. And I will say no. And there is a new dialog called site scenarios. So in this one, I have to click add. I can create another scenario, give it a name, give it an ID, which is important, and link to what? That's asking you, like, what is the bin? You go by the ID, and easy way, this link bin, and it opens the link bin structure, and you say, I want to link to this. Okay, then it is happy. Now, this site has been linked to, these bins, but I won't save it. Cancel. No, I won't save it. So just quickly to show you the network one as well, there is a new, let me just look what we had here. No, this was something different. Okay, go straight to the network scenarios. There are two tabs. You add a scenario, define it, but it knows which sites are in that network. With each one, you have to define what site scenario it is, and you link to that site scenario. They are here. That you have already defined. You just select them. So if you, as I said, prepare your tables and what you want to do, just implement them. No. Okay, I think I'll stop there. We are into the Q&A period. Now, you let me see. Okay, more questions, but we'll handle the questions first. Time permitting, I would like to say a few very important things about multiple green periods in signal cases. What is behind it, and you really need to understand. Mark, can you answer
Yes, certainly. I'll take on the first couple of questions. Yeah. In fact, I'll jump in with one more recent one. While in SIDRA Maps, can I add new sites? Probably I should have shown this. Let me take the screen and put the software back up, and then this will lead into answering something else I want as well. So here, remember a little while ago I was showing you SIDRA Maps, and question, add a new site. Well, yeah, I didn't go over map extract, assuming you were familiar from previous version, but if I wanted to say go further along this road, I can just click on that as a site that's not in. It brings up map extract. It's showing me what it thinks that site looks like, and it's giving me the opportunity to tailor a few things and add it in. I won't do it here because I've got actually a mixture of having my program set to driving on the right and pulling something out of a map that drives on the left won't give a good result, but it's really as simple as that. So that map extract function's still there. I could easily add that in as an extra site. I didn't show you the layers here, so if I'm not interested in map extract, I can turn that off, okay? And but if I want to, I can do that. I put the buildings back, or quite a bit of customization available. But if I'm intending to add new sites, make sure map extract's on. Anything with that square or rectangle can be added in. Now, the next question I'll keep open with this particular project because I think it illustrates the point well. There's been some questions about the IDs. Why did we restrict duplicates? Why did we go into this ID? Duplicate IDs have to be unique in the whole project. So site and network IDs need to be unique in the whole project. There is actually a good reason for that, but I'll go through some of the reasons behind why we did it. You can see a network layout here. So let me just zoom in a bit more so you can see details. On our networks, we've always shown the site ID, 11, 12, S5. So to understand your sites in the network, it's a real mess if you've got duplicate IDs. They're not different. We still have sites in network which gives you a link between the ID and the site name, but there isn't room to put the name in these pictures. So those IDs become important. If you've got 3 sites that are 101, this used to happen all the time, you go, well, which 101 is it? Is it the signal? Is it the roundabout? You really don't know. You have a lot of trouble. So restricting to unique IDs is certainly good for our network layout. But another aspect of this, if I say select all the sites in the network and then go to site reports and put up the movement summary, okay, so all these things have popped up. We used to, in these tabs, try to put an abbreviation of the site name, but of course site names often start off the same. It's just the end, it's got a comment about modified design or AM peak or something, whereas the ID, you know, is unique. S1 is a very specific site 1, this giveaway site. You know instantly which site is referred to by that tab. Scenario analysis is another reason. Rahmi's shown you that a few minutes ago, and the importance of the site and network IDs there is also something that led us to the unique IDs. If a site might be part of more than one network, it also assists you with understanding that. In the future, we'll have an assign program. The site IDs will also be important. Finally, when we have links to other software, so Transoft Solutions, Taurus, for example, AimSun, we link to be able to link to site data from other software, there has to be a unique identification of the site. Otherwise, those software links can't function properly. So again, unique ID is very important for that. Okay, quite a few other questions.
Can I
go
just
on.
add something?
Yes.
So when you send your support queries, this will allow you, say you have a network, you have one intersection in that network, your question is about, I got these results, can you explain why this is? You'll just tell us the ID of that, in your support query. Just say, in my network, site X1, I am asking a question about. Before, so they were all 101, and we want to answer you, we have to use a lot of words, the site which is to the west of, that roundabout, etc. So this will really efficiency of communication as well.
Okay, that's another good point. Now, I'll pass over to you, Rahmi, to answer some of the other questions.
Yes. Now, About the weaving in a network, we do not model it, and it is not in SIDRA. With arterials, we give lane changes, but they are not weaving as such. There isn't much good model with arterial weaving, but I know in the US there is research. We are keeping an eye on it. And with the assignment package coming in version 11, that will give us more handles in vehicle movements through the network. So possibly we will include that even in arterial networks. With the freeway networks, of course, highway capacity manual has got a well-established weaving model, which we could include as well. However, in our networks, so far, we haven't really gone for freeway system modeling as such. But the slide I'm showing you, SIDRA has been used for interchange modeling for a long time. But they've only looked at the interchange, not the freeway part of it, just the interchange, over the bridge or below the freeway, just the couple of intersections, how do they operate and so on. But now with the basic segments we have given you, you can configure them, configure a freeway interchange including the freeway section. So what do you get out of that? This is really what you can do. Is firstly the interchange part. It is a paired intersection model, either coordinated or as a common control group if signals, which means they are running from one single controller. You can do all that. Then look at its timings, capacity, performance, delay, queues, stops, fuel consumption, whatever you want. And the second one is lane blockages. Now, in this on the south S2 side, west approach, traffic coming off the freeway, if the signals aren't efficient enough, they can queue back onto the freeway. So you learn about that from the SIDRA analysis with these linkages. And there is another blockage the other way. The on-ramp, if very heavy freeway flow and entry flow, merge flow if you like, a queue, you will create some condition in the future or whatever, it will create a queue and it will block the freeway. So we'll check out the model with this one. Probably there is a bit of streamlining necessary, but that is what we can do. So that answers that one. Mark, do you want to take a question? I get ready for the signals one, or?
Oh, well, okay, there's a few. So we've talked about the network and the weaving issues. That's all good. Okay, difference in computation between zipper and priority merge. Now we merge these as model these merges as a gap acceptance process. So the key difference between priority and zipper, with a priority merge you've got one stream needing to give way to the next lane. So it's really considered, if you're at least in Australia, if you're crossing a dashed line, you need to give way to vehicles in the lane you're moving into at the merge. And that's just a one thing. So one movement, one lane, I should say, is giving way to the other, and we set specific gap acceptance parameters, quite short. But with a zipper, the lanes are considered to give way to each other. So ideal zipper, 50-50, not always perfect, but that proportion can be changed. But our default assumption is a 50-50 merge, so vehicles give way to each other in the two lanes. So it's quite a different computation. The zipper one works out far more favourably, usually. Usually changing to a zipper will give a big improvement in performance. I think the gap acceptance by default's slightly more favourable as well. So I hope that explains sufficiently. Does the scenarios feature only change the volumes? At this stage, yes, but I think in the future we would like to make the scenarios broader so we can model changes to other different types of scenarios, like perhaps different phasing and timing and so on. So we will certainly be expanding that in the future. Also, the reporting of the scenarios will expand in future versions as well, but there's a limit to how much you can do in a single
Mark,
version.
I'll add to that. That's a good question. Definitely signal phase sequences, because we have multiple specifications for that, could be done. But of course, geometry, the site, if you are changing the site controls, site, one is short lane, 60 meters, 100 meters comparing. So you cannot refer to them as such. You have to create the sites. But whatever is within sites which can turn into scenarios, we could add those. We have to find ways. Obviously, phase sequences are already in there in the dialogues, so we can just point to them. Instead of changing one by one manually, you could even do through scenarios, multiple scenario analysis. And in fact, with the volume scenarios, we do intend to expand it to multiple scenario analysis. So you say, okay, all the scenarios, analyze them all in one go, and give me a table like the tools project summary one, like this for sites. Okay, I haven't selected any. Select all. You see, like in one table, we are giving you all the summaries. At the moment, you can use that one to look at your alternative scenarios, but you need to do it one at a time at the moment. So there's always these improvements possible. So Mark, shall I talk about the signal one a bit?
Well, there's two more questions I'd like to do very quickly.
You do that.
Firstly, can you import volumes into bins from a CSV or other Excel file? Not yet, but I'm hoping you would be aware of our volumes utility, and I believe we'll be expanding that to cover bins and volume store. But even now, you could use the volumes utility to put a volume into a specific site, and you could then get your bin data. Okay, it's a two-step process, but still probably much better than hand typing. So right now, I'd say use the volumes utility, put the volumes into a site, then import into a bin from that site. But we will streamline that more as time goes on. That's a very popular question. There's another question, any update on RIRO for finding LOS? I assume that means write in, write out. This sounds like a specific support topic. I'd suggest that you send us a support question about that. That's not I'm not quite aware what the update is and what the real question is there. So contact support, anything else we haven't answered or you want more detail, don't hesitate to send to support. I'll pass back to Rahmi now, who wants to talk briefly about signal timing.
Just before that, quickly, a couple of slides this one I skipped. Volumes utility is downloadable from our website. You go to the support section, downloads and volumes. It is already available for version 10. You can see here in the user guide there is information about the use of it, but also that allows you to put your own code to import external volumes into that. Then you can put that into SIDRA if you know this is the streamlined, and you can achieve. A lot of people use this. Now, that uses SIDRA API to run SIDRA. SIDRA API itself is really applicable, the previous ones, but we are doing more work. You know, I think the volume store has to be made accessible in that one. The SIDRA assign, I already said enough on that one. I think this is for after I talk about signals. Now, this example we had, the first one, bypass lanes, north and south, and turn on red applies, east and west. By way of an example, there are short lanes, you know, turn base, and so on. So this is the intersection. Now, with the critical moment diagram, I would like to say this is where SIDRA was born from. What we do is we turn the phase specifications, the phase sequence that we always have. That is, if I go to site setup and click phase sequence, now for this one, it is this phase sequence, okay? And there are many overlap movements running in more than one phase and stopping in between, and permitted turns, protected turns, left turns, but also slip lanes work like that too. So all those are identified in the and reported. They are turned into from to. Where do the movement starts? But in fact, green period of the movement starts and ends. So all those diagrams Mark was showing you this is the key algorithm. And with the movement timing also, we give you information. These are the phases. These are the movements. You know, how do they relate? When are they going? And so on. And you can also look at this diagram as in the manage output, you know, as displayed ones. You see, these are all, if they are subject to, and if there is any adjustments in different colors, there is I think there should be like all this is telling you what they are about. But then, how do we identify the critical moments in all that mess? So that from to system, any phase sequence you give, it doesn't have to be you know, standard phase sequences which you learn about. So you can sort out. Behind that is how much time is needed for each movement, each green period, and what the longest time required is what signals will get. So we identify those, comparing movement requirements against each other, and give you this diagram, which works with critical path algorithms, like which is the longest path of required times. So this is that if you add those times and those, that is more than going through the other path. So this is key to SIDRA's strength in timing analysis. Now, but with the extra green periods, the new feature, what is important when we talk about, I'll go back to the effective timings. It's easier to explain. When you have multiple greens like 1, 2, 3, Mark is saying permitted and protected are separated now, and there is another green for that left turn movement, which is our always trouble movement in signal design. What is behind it is that each one has got a different saturation flow rate. They are individually modeled. So this is what I wanted to show you. So if you can see, so if the, I think, north right turn is, what's the better example? Like here, for example,
North left should be.
north,
Okay.
north left here. Yeah, it brought in this high one that which it's worth explaining too. But if you look through, like you see different ones. I think this lane,
That's a
this
right
is by
turn.
lane. This is what.
That's a right turn slip lane, the one you've highlighted.
Yeah, yeah. I want to go to the movements actually. That's easier to understand. So you can see, like by left and heavy vehicles, even like these are used in signal timing calculations to calculate how much time do I need. This is the arrival flow. This is the saturation flow. The flow ratio is this, etc. Zeros are when you have a slip lane, you don't use it for signal timing. It's unsignalized and so on. So because permitted turns give way, yield to the opposing traffic, their saturation flow rate will be less and so on. So it is that sort of micro level which is used in SIDRA. Another important one is this the one? Okay. Now what you'll see is that the start loss value with the left turn, so from this you see that is opposed, meaning that yields in that green period, that's the permitted one. You see the SIDRA will put start loss. It will calculate the time when opposing queues are being discharged and use it as an effective red. So queues are building during that time. In the HCM and HCM software, instead of that, they get the average saturation flow. They don't change the start loss, but they change the average saturation flow further down. But we keep saturation flow after queue goes away, opposing queue, and they can discharge. It is the gap acceptance, saturation flow, etc. So all this is in SIDRA, and all that makes difference. And also, because saturation flow rates, which are queue discharge rates, are different, queue formation through these multiple green periods varies. Queue builds up and discharges, builds up, discharges. Sometimes won't discharge entirely. There will be a residual queue. SIDRA models all those to the nth degree. And with the multiple green periods increased, we had to enhance that sort of modeling. Now, quickly, the end of it. SIDRA Solutions. Sorry, I finished my commentary on that one. We'll wrap up because we came to the end of this thing. Firstly, thank you very much for your interest, and I hope you got benefit out of this webinar. On our SIDRA Solutions website, there are lots of good information, technical information, support system access, all publications you can download, and so on. We have a LinkedIn site as well, and you could maybe follow us on that one, and that's the image. And also SIDRA newsletter, which we send. We inform about what is coming up and training and all that sort of thing. And it is just filling this form. It takes email address, country, click subscribe, and you can always unsubscribe it, of course. We don't send too many newsletters, but you would know what is going on with SIDRA development. So now, evaluation survey, you should receive a link for this. We would really appreciate if you respond to this survey and tell us how much benefit you got and what you like, and maybe just note in there and what was the topic which was of greatest interest to you. We would really love to know that as well. So thank you very much. And I also thank my colleagues, Mark and Ian, Nathan, controlling all the technology behind this webinar, and also Jennifer and Sharon, who helped with all this, and all the others organizing. Thank you very much, and have a good evening, good afternoon, or wherever you are, have a good day. Bye-bye.